This is the host of the Simpsons Did It podcast, here to talk to you about Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. 1, it's free. 2, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast, all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor:/FM to get started. Welcome back to another episode of The Simpsons Did It. I'm your host, Steven Sklansky.
And I am your co-host, Robert Skolansky.
All right, welcome to episode 8. It's been a week. Things are going well. The Simpsons. Things happen. The Simpsons are getting a little bit more interesting as the time goes on.
Yeah.
This week is, to me, I feel like a really interesting episode of The Simpsons. It's not your standard.
It really isn't.
I would say episode. The episode is called The Telltale Head. It's kind of like The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe.
Yep.
And we'll get into why I don't feel the need for this title a little bit later on.
Okay.
But yeah, not your typical Simpson episode.
Nope.
It aired February 25th, 1990. There was couchboard.
A chalkboard?
Wow. Yeah, a chalkboard or a couch board or a couch gag. There was everything. I'm sorry. The chalkboard gag was I did not see Elvis. Bart must have been doing one of his imaginary trips looking outside the Miss Krabappel's window.
Elvis is alive and well, thank you very much. I'm kidding.
Yeah, there's 100 of them alive and well in Vegas.
Yep.
So the couch gag was a repeat from Bart the Genius. Bart pops up into the air and then lands in front of the TV.
Which I saw that and I'm like, because when I watched the episode, I'm like, did somebody re-edit this? So I had to look it up to make sure I wasn't seeing things. And no, they reran a couch gag.
Yeah, so I think early on, as we kind of learn in future episodes, that I think it takes a keen writing skill to write these couch gags. Maybe not that keen, but you kind of have to think outside the box a little bit.
Oh yeah.
As the future couch gags go, I mean, they have different artists, they have different people doing them, so I think that kind of spreads the wealth of coming up with them. But early on,
they've even done crossover couch gags with other TV shows.
Yep. So I think maybe they're like, we don't have to do one this week. No one will notice. Don't worry. They don't pay attention that much.
No.
Says the people doing the Simpsons podcast. We don't pay attention at all.
Yeah.
So we saw a repeat, and this is not the first time we'll see a repeat of the couch gag. So to give you a quick recap, Bart pulls a stunt that shocks the entire town, including the new friends he was trying to impress. So as as I mentioned, the title of the episode. Sorry, I thought you said it for some reason.
No, I haven't done a whole lot of talking yet.
Good. We'll keep it. No, joking.
Yeah.
So it was a nod to the Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. This is also the first time they actually captioned the episode title.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting because I don't recall them really doing that a whole lot.
Well, aside from Treehouse of Horror episodes, they don't caption. I don't think they've ever done it in the future. We'll find out.
Well, the Treehouse of Horror episodes, I know the first couple of seasons they do them differently, but I could have sworn in future episodes they do a title card.
Yeah.
So this was the episode is going on and you see the title of the episode. And maybe that's, something they were trying stylistic-wise.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could think of is it was like, let's try something new. I mean,
Yeah.
we already repeat the couch gag.
Yeah.
We could do anything now.
And the one thing that granted, this was 1990, so I'm obviously, when I, give my grade at the end, I always like to use it in the context of the era. But the one thing I don't really like in movies and TV shows anymore, where they start at the end, go back to the beginning, and then go back to the end. Like, I don't really like that artistic choice in storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes in movies it makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. But, I mean, this was the first and possibly the only episode that they've ever done that. Once again,
Yes.
They repeated the couch gag. They could do whatever they want in this episode. But yeah, the episode starts off with Homer and Bart walking with the head of Jebediah Springfield, which has to be really heavy.
It's metal.
I don't see how.
It's freaking bronze metal. That thing, the head itself probably weighs at least 50 pounds.
But it was also hollow. I mean, still heavy. Don't get me wrong. But
Yeah.
I think it was hollowed out, so it wasn't as heavy as.
I don't think it was. Who knows if it was hollowed out?
Well, you could tell when he cuts off the head that the whole thing's hollow.
Is it? I couldn't really tell.
And then the mob chases them to the headless statue where Bart explains what happened.
And he says the story is going to take 23 minutes and 5 seconds, which is approximately how long an episode usually runs. On average, if a TV show has a half-hour episode, the actual runtime of the episode usually goes between 22 minutes and 23 minutes. So,
yeah. I think it's funny that they use that. Because who was it, Krusty, that asked how long is this going to take?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into Krusty the Clown in a second here.
Yep. So Homer, as he's walking, says he's pulled a few boners when he was his age. And I swear to God, that made me laugh so hard. I'm like, so do you have relations with a lot of women?
Nope.
Age, or...
Pulling a boner is a slang phrase from the early 1900s, which, Edgar Allan Poe, he wrote, 1800s?
Yeah.
My history, if I remember my history, which I clearly do not. So, yeah, it would make sense that they would use this phrase in this episode.
Yeah.
Pulling a boner. I have some other slang terms from the 70s and 80s that are along these lines that I use from time to time, which they clearly take on a different meaning in this day and age. But yeah, pulling a boner, basically, I've made mistakes. That's what it means. I've made mistakes.
He has fun with himself on a daily basis.
God.
That's what pulling a boner means now.
Correct.
And
I thought this was supposed to be a PG podcast.
Right. That's why I didn't use the other term. So maybe kids won't get it.
Okay.
All right, so the story starts off with the Simpsons being late for church, which on a typical Sunday, usually they are.
Yeah.
Marge does his pat down to Bart.
Because he's a wild child. He doesn't obey the rules, so he brings whatever he can to church to keep himself occupied.
Yep. Still no picture of the sailboat.
Nope, it's still a beach island thing. I don't know.
So Marge seems more upset that they'll be late for church than Homer standing on the couch.
Because he bet on a football game. He's watching a football game. He's jumping up and down on the couch. And Marge is like, Homer, we're going to be late for church. Not Homer, get off the couch.
Well, I also don't know what football games start before noon on a Sunday. I mean, originally, I thought maybe college football.
But college football is Saturday.
Exactly. So that's the only thing I was thinking. I was like, well, maybe he's watching a rerun of a college football game.
Unless there's people out there who, attend church in the afternoon and would like to, educate us on that. Because from my understanding, most church services start at like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. There
are some bigger churches that will do like a 9 and an 11. So maybe that's the one they went, but that's still kind of pushing.
But here, and as we talked about in the last episode, you're like, well, where do they live? Maybe this was an 11 o'clock game on the East Coast, Because remember, here is Central Time, it starts at noon. So maybe Springfield's on the East Coast where games start at 11.
So
and
now
maybe
now
there's
we
an
now
11
they
o'clock service.
So between one episode, they've lived on the West Coast and East Coast. Perfect. We're getting
I told
somewhere.
you, Springfield is imaginary.
All right. So Marge pulls a Radioactive Man comic from inside of Bart's jacket pocket before leaving church. So if you remember from back in Bart and the Genius, when he had the Radioactive Man comic from the school that he went to,
yep,
he still has it.
Yep. Or it's a different one. I mean, he's a boy. He reads comics. I mean, I'm not saying that girls don't read comics either, but in The Simpsons, Bart reads comics.
Yeah, but he hasn't been to the comic book shop yet. Comic book guy doesn't technically exist.
Well, we haven't seen him go there yet. Doesn't mean he hasn't been there.
Yeah. So I wrote down not sure how many cars have their headlights turn on when you honk the horn.
Yeah.
I mean, must have a pretty. I mean, based on the RV they bought, they must have a pretty janky car too. Homer's purple, or not purple, pink
car.
And then the car also has an 8-track player. If you look closely at the. So my guess would be is this car is probably somewhere in the late 70s, early 80s ish. That would be my guess. This Homer has a late 70s, early 80s car if it has an 8-track. Because Bart has a cassette player.
Yep.
And personal cassette players came out in 1997.
1979.
Sorry, 1979. If I talk
reading
correctly,
is important.
Yes, 1979. So obviously cassettes existed but 8-track was Sony's version of the cassette. Okay, history lesson for all the people listening that might not know what we're talking about. Back in the day, music was played on these little cassettes with little tape in the inside.
Yep.
And the mainstream was cassette. The Sony version was 8-track. So if you know your history is Sony comes out with something and then there's mainstream.
Yeah.
And 8-track was Sony's. Cassette obviously won, 8-track went away.
Yeah.
But just like a lot of things being built, they double dipped. Like one company would have 8-track, company would have cassette. Homer's car had a 8-track in it. So obviously they chose wrong.
Yeah.
Because I don't know because the Simpsons do have a record player in their home, but I don't know if they technically have an 8-track player at all.
I don't know.
And I don't know if Homer actually has an 8-tracks. Now, in the Homer Palooza episode where Homer goes to the Alapalooza.
Oh, yeah.
He does put a cassette of some kind, I think, in his car. And when we get to that episode, we're going to put a pin in this.
Yeah.
So I want to see if Homer actually uses an 8-track in that episode or if he actually uses a cassette.
I don't know.
So we'll put a pin in that.
So they get to church. Homer takes Bart's cassette player because Marge takes it off Bart, throws it into the car, and Homer's like, "Ooh, I can listen to the game on this." So they cut to Sunday school, and the kids are asking the Sunday school teacher, "Oh, does my cat go to heaven? Does my dog go to heaven?" And Bart asks, "If your leg gets gangrene and it gets cut off, and it dies, and then you die, will you meet your leg in heaven?" And the answer, surprisingly, is yes. Your gangrene leg goes to heaven. Your pets, I'm sorry to say, they don't go to heaven. Maybe there's an animal heaven, maybe there's a human heaven, but they don't go to the same heaven. This is also the first appearance of the Sunday school teacher, Miss Albright. I don't really recall seeing her in other episodes, but I haven't really watched the first few seasons of the Simpsons in a really long time, so...
We'll have to see because there are definitely other episodes with Sunday school.
Yes.
But we'll have to see if it's like one of those things like Bart and Babysitters. He chases them away. So we'll have to see. But the funny thing with Bart's comment is the teacher does say, like I've said before, yeah. So I want to know how many times Bart asked the teacher.
More than twice.
Yeah, apparently more than twice because it's really, really funny. And obviously, Bart does get banned from Sunday school. I don't know if it's in a Simpson episode or not.
Okay.
But we do learn that Bart was banned from Sunday school class. So we'll have to put a pin in that and find out if we find that out or when we learn that.
Yeah. So this might be probably my second favorite part of this episode. So they cut back to the church where all the adults are, and Reverend Lovejoy, who it's also his first appearance, which I actually thought was kind of surprising because I could have sworn we saw him earlier, but clearly we didn't. He's giving a sermon on gambling, and Homer gambled on the football game that he's listening to. And as Reverend Lovejoy is giving his sermon, you hear the play-by-play. So you see the Reverend talking, but you hear the play-by-play. And, you know, Homer, like, is listening intently. You hear the play-by-play. You see the Reverend, the lips moving at the same time. And then they score a touchdown and win. And Homer jumps in and goes, woo! And Lovejoy is like, sit down, Homer. Because he doesn't realize what's going on.
Yeah, it's just so funny that it lines up so perfectly to the sermon.
Well, I think that was the point of it all.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's really fun. I mean, great. It was great on the writer's part.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
To do that. Like, that was phenomenal. Like, it would have been one thing if Homer just jumped up shouting yay in the middle of the... Now, I mean, it could have been done two ways, really. It could have been done the way it was done, or... He could have just shouted yay, and Homer's and Reverend Legend, oh, I'm glad you're interested in, you know, my sermon.
Yeah. Without
any of the backstory. So a couple other gambling tips with the way this episode kind of progressed. A sign inside the church where Reverend Lovejoy has just given a sermon on the evils of gambling read bingo Tuesday night, Monte Carlo night Wednesday, and Reno retreat Saturday.
What is Reno retreat?
My guess is they live once, kind of how we talk. They must live on the East Coast because, they live on the West Coast because Reno is in Nevada. So they're going on a Reno retreat.
Oh, maybe. Also, gambling is bad. Don't gamble. Yes. Unless you're really, really good at it, and it's still probably not a good idea.
It's not gambling if you win all the time.
That's not true. Yes. Still gambling even if you win. You just get lucky.
Yeah. All right. So as they drive home from church, Bart wants to see Space Mutant 4. The trilogy continues, which the awesome title. Like that was one of the things I laughed out loud about when I saw this again. I'm like, how awesome would it be if that's how they continued the Star Wars trilogy. Episode 7. I was
actually thinking, I'm wondering if that's a parody to Star Wars. Now, granted, episode 1 of Star Wars didn't come out until 96. I looked it up. But, Space Mutants 4, the trilogy continues. Well, now I'm sure, or maybe it was a Star Trek thing. I don't really know. But clearly they're making fun of somebody.
Well, I think it's just anything that goes beyond, so.
But how many movies in the early 90s were a trilogy by then?
Thinking, Halloween.
Okay, Star
Halloween,
Wars.
on Elm Street.
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of the horror movies. Friday the 13th. I don't think Texas Chainsaw Massacre ever got to 4 at least by the 90s.
No.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's just making fun of anything that's longer than.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, it's just really funny just to be like, I think someone now, if they make a Bad Boys 4, so it was called Bad.
Oh no, they're on 3. Never mind.
Yeah,
Bad Boys for Life.
But they never actually called it 3, which was kind of nice. I'm glad they didn't call it 3, but I think anything they had, The Matrix. Here we go. Instead of calling it Matrix 4, call it Matrix 4. The trilogy continues.
That would be great.
That would be awesome. I would so go see it if that was the name of it.
Yeah.
All right, so we also learn in this episode. I mean, we've seen Bart skateboard in the past, and we've seen him skateboard through the opening credits before. But in this episode, we really do get to see Bart's skills on display.
Yeah.
Until he
runs
really
excellent skateboarder for a 10-year-old.
Until he runs headfirst into a pole.
Yeah.
So this is the first appearance of Jimbo Jones, Kearney
Zwish.
Zwish, and I saw that you looked that up on Wikipedia. That's really
Yes.
weird that's his name. And then Dolph Starbeam.
Starbeam.
Now I wonder if someone on the Simpsons writing staff was a Rocky IV fan, and they just like the name Dolph, like for Dolph Lundgren.
Oh, maybe.
If that's where that, I mean, obviously it's not a popular name. My guess
No.
would be if Dolph is also a Russian name. That would
Yeah.
that would probably be my guess. And I wonder if that might have been where they pulled that from. It's like Dolph is a bully's name. He beat up Rocky, or he beat up Apollo Creed.
Yes.
He's that bully. And Starbeam, I mean, maybe the guy, maybe Dolph Starbeam's mom
Maybe.
is Russian and lived in the 70s, and just what was Starbeam? Starbeam was like, wasn't that like a disco name or a
It's a hippie name.
hippie name? Yeah, that's my I'm gonna go with that. If anyone
Okay.
knows otherwise, you let me know.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I pointed out, like how there was like there was a line outside the theater,
Yeah.
but there was no one in the theater. Like there's a line going around. I mean, obviously most movie theaters do play more than one movie, but I feel like in the town of Springfield, their movie theater, because it has a marquee and kind of,
Yeah.
I think it might have just been a one screen.
I mean, maybe there's a few screens there.
I mean, it's possible, but most marquees would have every movie that's playing on it.
Maybe. Or maybe Space Mutants 4 was the big one? I don't know.
Maybe. But I do like the fact that there was a line outside the theater, but maybe like 15, 20 people inside the theater.
Yeah.
So after they go in, they get kicked out. And we learn
Yep.
that Jimbo has been kicked out of all 4 Space Mutants now.
Yep.
That's something to be very proud of. But
I mean, I guess he's a bad kid, so,
But how did Dolph, it must have been Dolph, how did he get in? He must have paid. Unless he snuck in.
No, he sneaks in. That's what they do. They're bad kids.
I mean, the way the marquee set up, it'd be really hard to, because the ticket guy is right there in the.
But they went through a side door.
Well, Kearney and Bart and Jimbo did. Someone had to go in to get to the side door.
I mean, maybe they just asked to use the bathroom and they let them in. Don't forget, this is the 90s.
Yeah.
You try that crap today, you ain't getting in.
Yeah. So after the movie's over, they go to the real Quickie Mart.
And we got our first appearance of Apu Nahasapipa Pedalon. Say that 5 times fast.
No.
So Bart...
Apu N.
Apu N. So Bart decides, he didn't spend the money at the movie theater, so he decides to buy the bullies squishies, spread the wealth, which is what Homer always says. But Bart, unknowingly, distracts Apu while the bullies steal some food and some jerky and a Play Dude. And Bart's like, "Where'd you get all that cool stuff?" They're like, "Oh, a 5-finger discount." And all the residents of Springfield have 4 fingers.
Well,
so would it be a 4-finger discount?
I think everyone in the Simpsons universe has 4 fingers, not just in Springfield.
Oh, I could have sworn there was a couple people that actually had 5 fingers.
Well, okay, we'll put a pin in that. We'll have to, but I do like that Jimbo does say 5-finger discount, dude.
Yeah.
Like, does he not know? I wonder if that's another just one of those slip of the tongues. Or
I mean, it is technically a 5-finger discount because in the real world we all have. I mean, a majority of us have 5 fingers on each hand.
Unless that was the joke that only some people were going to catch. I mean, it is only episode 8, so I would be hard pressed to believe that everyone didn't notice they had 4 fingers.
Yeah.
But one thing I wonder if maybe it was the voice actor slip of the tongue. They know that maybe it might have been written on the script 4-finger discount, and they just were like stealing 5. That it's just called a 5-finger discount.
Yeah.
And they just left it in because they're like, whatever. It's a funny joke. We'll let it slide.
Yeah.
So the kids are throwing rocks at Jebediah's statue, where they learn that he saved the town from the Great Blizzard of 48. We also learn a little. I wrote it now But we also learned a little bit later during a news report that the full name of Jebediah Springfield is Jebediah, Obadiah, Zachariah, Jebediah Springfield. I mean, I really wish that in the Silver Tongue episode that they would have repeated that again, or you know what I mean? I think that would have been hilarious to kind of keep that canon through multiple episodes.
And then I think this is probably my favorite part of the episode. So the four of them, after they leave, after they get kicked away from the statue by some guy, they're looking up at the clouds, and I believe it's Kearney or Dolph. I think it was the bald kid. I can't remember his name. He goes, "Oh, look at the clouds. They all look like things." And the other guy's like, "Oh, that's really dumb." He's like, "No, that one looks like a cherry bomb." And then another kid goes, "That looks like a guy getting stabbed in the back with a switchblade." And then the third bully goes, "Oh, it's a school bus full of children on fire." And then, Bart, being Bart, he goes, "Oh, I see a headless statue of Jebediah." And that leads me to believe, how violent are the last two bullies? Because normally with cherry bombs, you just kind of stick those in toilets and blow up toilets. But, one guy sees a guy getting stabbed in the back, and another one with a school bus full of children on fire.
They watched a lot of R-rated movies as kids. They probably had no parental... They live in the same neighborhood as Nelson.
But, how screwed up do you have to be to see that kind of stuff?
They're really insane.
Right?
They're real. So... they steal, they go into free movies. They're definitely bad kids. But I guess it'd be interesting to see if they have a juvenile record or not.
I thought they did.
Okay, we might learn that in a future episode. So, we also learned that Jebediah also killed a bear with his bare hands.
Or the bear killed him.
Either way.
Yeah.
And then, so Bart goes to Homer after everything's over. He's like, how important is it to be popular? And being popular is the most important thing in the world, according to Homer.
It's not. I think the Simpsons really do a good job early on, showing, sometimes it's not a good idea to do bad things just because you want other people to like you.
But that's kind of 90s mentality. Before social media, before the internet, before a lot of this stuff, it's like, how do I become friends? I can't take a photo of something cool and share it on Facebook and become friends with the world. You kind of had to choose your own path to figure out how you wanted to be friends with someone, whether it's only doing good, going on a scary roller coaster. All my friends are going on this roller coaster. Well, I don't want to feel like a loser because they're going to hate me. I got to go on it. You kind of had to really, really make your own decisions in the 90s to kind of get into your group of friends. So another thing we see throughout the course of the episode is Homer reading the Bowl Earth catalog.
Yep.
And this is kind of your first peek into Homer's interest in bowling. Episode,
I would say second, or am I an episode ahead of myself? I am an episode ahead of myself. You were right.
Yep. So next episode 9, we'll really get into Homer and bowling, but this kind of is like a really good intro to how Homer is with bowling and how interested he really is in the sport. And he's intrigued by the stealth bowler bowling ball.
It's got liquid something in the middle. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's apparently a crazy bowling ball. So this episode, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, after, they look through the bowling catalog, Bart, that's when Bart had talked to Homer, and then, so everybody goes to bed, and as Bart sneaks out, he looks into his parents' bedroom to make sure they're asleep, which is a dangerous game to play. Always knock first, but they are asleep, and Homer is on the right side of the bed.
Yep.
So, and as we've mentioned before, they've kind of flip-flopped. So Homer's back on the right.
Maybe it's just okay. So in a lot of houses, I mean, most parents, I guess, or adults that sleep together, kind of have their own side of the bed.
Yeah.
The only thing I could think of, at least at this juncture, is Marge goes to bed first, Homer goes to bed second. So Homer sleeps on the side of the bed that Marge didn't fall asleep on.
Maybe.
But which is really weird because they kind of have their own end tables, I'm assuming, with their own
stuff.
So I think, I mean, the standard side for Homer is the left side of the bed.
Correct.
That's Homer's, I mean, current season, and probably we'll figure out when it becomes really solid, but guessing around season 2, season 3, it becomes solid.
I also like the fact that as Bart sneaks out of the house, he's in a ninja costume.
Well, yeah, he's going to do something bad. He's got to be stealth. Bart does use a hacksaw. But
my question is, can you saw through metal?
Yeah, with a hacksaw.
But how long would it take?
Hours. Like it would take hours to do it with a hacksaw. That's why you use a blowtorch.
Yes. Okay. Because he's stuck out in the middle of the night. You got to figure Homer and Marge maybe go to around to bed 10, 11, maybe around midnight. I mean, I don't know what time they usually go to bed, but if it takes hours, I mean, Bart is 10, so he probably doesn't have a lot of stamina yet. Even if he goes out at midnight, can he get it done in 3 to 4 hours and get back home?
Probably not carrying it. That's the other thing. He has to carry that head back home.
Yeah. And nobody helped him.
Yep. He did it all on his own.
Like, he's got to carry it home, get it up back into his bedroom, because as we see, the next morning, Bart wakes up with the head in his bed, like the Godfather scene where the guy wakes up and his prize horse's head is in his bed with him, and he screams.
Yep.
Which I thought was a neat nod. I wouldn't realize the Simpsons would nod to the Godfather, but here we are.
Yep. So then you see the TV, or not the TV, the town hall of, oh my God, someone chopped off our beloved hero's head. And Police Chief Wiggum apparently tells the folks that you can dial the letter O.
Is it the letter O or is it the number 0? Because I've heard people, when they give their phone number, would be like 500-602, like that. Or is he actually saying the letter O?
But that's also but see, that's the other weird thing, is most people that say like 0 or O, it's a regional thing. Kind of like soda and pop, or
water fountain or bubbler.
But I think my guess is it would be a dialect of an area.
Or is he saying dial O for officer?
No, he says dial O, just dial O.
I know, but like, is in Wiggum's mind, is it O for like police officer? Because this is Chief Wiggum. He's not smart.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. So here, okay. I didn't realize this was an us versus them. As you personally, I use both depending on the situation. I'll always use 0 when it seems more universally recognized. So it seems like casual conversation becomes 508 in addition. Yeah, I mean, it's really weird. Apparently.
So to the listeners out there, do you say O when you're giving out numbers, or do you say 0, or do you do both?
Yeah. I think
let us know what you think about that.
I think most people do both.
I think I say O.
Yeah.
But my phone number doesn't have a 0 in it, so I don't say 0 often.
Yeah. So then we get, after the town hall meeting, we kind of shoot over to Moe's Tavern, where Moe is still wearing his pink apron.
God, I wonder if that changes in the second season.
We'll see. So Barney orders a beer, and he wants to make sure that there's a head on it. Like, he specifically asks Moe to make sure there's head on his beer.
Okay, we've both been to bars. We are both of age. I don't think I've ever asked a bartender to make sure there is head on a beer.
I mean, I try to
they're
make it
supposed to be
as
added on
possible.
beer because that enhances the flavor. But I've never specifically requested to make sure that there was head on a beer.
But obviously, that was making that
Fun,
was more.
I know.
And Mo starts crying like,
Yeah.
"Come on, don't do that." I mean, the bullies, and even Burns are upset at that the head got cut off.
You've made a huge mistake when even C. Montgomery Burns is upset that the head is cut off of their beloved statue. Like, it clearly shows that Mr. Burns has a heart. It's a small heart. I don't know if it's still beating because he's old, but he has a heart.
And then this episode, we also see during like Krusty's little TV show, you see the first appearance of Sideshow Bob, and yes, so in this episode he has an afro. It does evolve from that huge afro into what it is today. Yeah. So I think, was it season 2 when Sideshow Bob frames Krusty?
I believe so.
So in that episode, he does have the points in his hair. So it is kind of odd to see him without it away.
Well, it's really weird too because like when they first show Krusty, you see his sidekick, and I'm like, that can't be Sideshow Bob. I mean, he has the red hair, and then he's like, you can get a slide whistle like Sideshow Bob. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah. So I also, one thing I do want to know is there is an episode where they show older Krusty Sideshow Bob tapes. I want to see if what hair he has. Like maybe they didn't realize in this episode that they want to draw him like that, and they're like, eh. So we'll take a peek at that when that shows up.
So
most lynch mobs aren't this nice.
Bart,
something.
Yeah, you skipped over a little bit. So after so that Bart tells the mob that, oh, you started chasing us, and somebody in the mob goes, yeah, we know, we were there, and Bart puts the head back on. The town cheers. My question is, he sawed it off. How did he get it to stay back on?
It wouldn't be perfect.
No, it wouldn't be perfect.
You would need not a soldering iron, because that's for like electronics. You need whatever they use to melt metal to.
A welder.
Welder, there it is.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was interesting. And then the one thing, probably the best quote of the episode, Burns turns to Smithers and he says, I love you, Smithers. And Smithers says, the feeling is more than mutual. So we get a first glimpse of how Smithers feels about Mr. Burns.
Yep.
And I think when they first did the series, like when they first came out with the series and they did the first few episodes, they weren't really, I don't think they were really going for Mr. Smithers being gay, but obviously it evolved that way. And this is the first instance where we see Smithers really, has, mutual love for Burns.
Yep. So one thing I also noticed about the mob is it was so crudely drawn.
Oh,
like, the characters that we kind of recognized really didn't look like those characters.
Yeah.
And then there were a bunch of characters obviously they're just normal.
Also, as you mentioned earlier, Krusty the Clown, he also makes his first appearance this episode.
In the mob. And on
TV. This is the first time we see Krusty the Clown, which, in the opening credits, they show Krusty the Clown on TV.
Oh, in the TV shop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, now granted, this is probably the first appearance where he actually talks, but, they still show a clown in the TV. Maybe that's Krusty and they just didn't get around to it until now, but I don't know. A couple other things that I found interesting. 2 of the football players' names in the game that Homer is listening to are named Kogan and Wolodarski, which is in reference to writers Jay Kogan and Wallace Wolodarski. And also, the announcer is based off of Keith Jackson, and he's done so many college football games. He's done the NFL. He's mainly a football announcer. he's still alive. So I wonder what his thoughts were when he found out they based that announcer off of him.
Yeah, I do like the writer thing. The writer thing is kind of cool. I think in a
Yeah.
lot of Simpson episodes, at least in the beginning, there were always some subtle
Yeah.
hints to writers and directors and stuff within episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, early on there aren't many voice cameos, like celebrity cameos. So for someone to be based off of a character, I'm sure it's something.
Yeah.
At the time this episode aired, probably not as big, but maybe by like season 2 to 4 or 5, as the show kind of grew and got more popular.
Yeah.
Keith Jackson, if you ever saw that episode, was like, oh wow, this is really awesome. Now there's celebrities actually being guest voices on these shows, and you know what I mean? Like it's it's a real honor to be on The Simpsons.
So way back at the beginning of this episode, you didn't like the title of this episode. Would you care to explain why?
Yeah, so I was about to get there. So the title of the episode was The Telltale Head. In the Telltale Heart, the guy gets driven mad by the beating heart in the floor. I did not see in this episode, like, okay, so yes, Bart tried burying it, trying to get it out of the way, but the head changed his mind. It was a conversation between Bart and the head that was like, okay, maybe this is wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm the founder of your town. Like, it was more of a general understanding, even though it was all in Bart's head, it was a general understanding. You didn't see, I thought it would have been better if the head would have been buried, gone. Yeah. Then in Bart's bedroom, he has I would say, to take it even farther, Bart has a dream of either Jebediah Springfield having the conversation. Yeah. Or like he hears, like kind of subtly hears Jebediah's voice from outside his bedroom. Yeah. From the ground.
And I will say this too. There is an episode in, I think within the first 10 seasons, where Lisa or Bart take a science project and bury it, and they do another Telltale Heart kind of thing with it.
But that was better. That was
better. So yeah, I could agree that maybe they shouldn't have called it this. I mean, I understand why they did. I mean, yes, they didn't drive. Bart wasn't driven mad, but there were glimpses of it.
Yeah, I mean, not as much. I think one, they could have come up with a better title. It was, I mean, the title told kind of the story, but I think the title could have been better, or the way the story was delivered at the very end. Yeah, could have referenced better to the Telltale Heart.
I can see that. So, what are your closing remarks on this episode?
Definitely not my favorite. I don't know. Like it just doesn't hit me the way that some of my favorite Simpson episodes really do. Like, I mean, the opening was funny. Yeah, the 23 minutes and 5 seconds. I mean, that got me a giggle. But really, it just, I don't know. It just did not give me necessarily the laugh factor. Like, I don't know. It just didn't hit me. I'm gonna go with Eat My Shorts. It wasn't awful. Like, it wasn't an awful episode. It had its moments, but it just did not resonate in me what I normally love about a Simpson episode.
Yeah. It sounds like your dog agrees with you on that.
He does. Yes.
So, I think it's a decently written episode. As I said at the top, I'm not a fan of the starting at the end, going back to the beginning of the episode, and then you end up back at the end again. Because, you know what the end result is. Now, granted, this is a Simpsons episode. Clearly, something is, the show's going to end just fine. And again, they can get away with it. It was 1990. I thought the character introductions were pretty good. I thought the voiceover of the play-by-play with Reverend Lovejoy was very clever and very well edited. I won't go as low as Don't Eat My Shorts. I'm going to say Don't Have a Cowman. I'll give it a 3. It was a good episode. average. I think it could have been better in what you said earlier, but yeah, don't have a cow, man.
All right. Well, those are our thoughts. Hop onto Facebook, message us, let us know your thoughts. Obviously, I post every day about something about our podcast, so tell us what you feel. If you hate our decisions, love our decisions, we would like to know. Yeah. We want to interact with our fans. All right, so our character profile this episode is the one and only Jimbo Jones.
Yep.
We're going to give you a brief description of Jimbo here. He has shaggy hair, he's a bucktooth town lowlife.
Did you write that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, he's a bucktooth town lowlife.
What does that even mean?
He has teeth hanging out. He's a lowlife. He wears a skull cap. No one trusts him. His reputation, though, proud to be known as one of the worst kids in school. I guess you have to have something
to be proud of.
Yeah. His cohorts are Dolphin Kearney. His attire, never seen wearing anything other than a black skull t-shirt and navy blue watch cap.
Yeah. I can't say I've ever seen him in anything else.
I know. We see a lot of characters in other things, but...
Actually, I'm going to backtrack a little on that. In the fantasy episodes, clearly he doesn't wear that stuff. But in the main Springfield episodes, yes, that is what he wears.
Even Burns wears his outfit.
Yes, that is true. We'll get to that.
His hobbies, beating up intimidated classmates, shoplifting from the Quickie Mart, getting kicked out of Space Mutant movies.
Yep.
Now, we still haven't learned what class he's in yet.
I mean, here's the thing. Those kids, they gotta be middle school age, right?
Or older. I don't know. That's the weird thing. Yeah. We'll have to see because it's Springfield Elementary, which to me says it goes through 5th grade.
Correct.
Jimbo goes to that school. So is he in 5th grade? Is he in that top grade?
I don't know. I isn't there a Springfield High School though? In the later episodes?
I'm sure there is, but I don't think he goes because remember
That's true.
They have sloppy Jimbos during one of the Halloween episodes.
That is true.
So we'll have to see if they ever mention what grade Jimbo Jones is in. His record: served time as an abusive counselor at Camp Krusty.
God, I love that episode. I can't wait to review that one. I love it.
And secret shames watching soap operas with his mother. The fact that and the fact that Mo once brought him to his knees.
Oh yeah.
With both of those we will get to in future episodes.
Yeah.
So until next Sunday, I have been Steven Skolansky.
I'm still Robert Skolansky.
And this has been The Simpsons Did It.
Shh.